As a young Pokemon fan, it was impossible to not dream of someday being able to play the series on a console. The Pokemon Stadium games and Gale of Darkness were a tease, but they're not the exact adventure I wanted. A journey to collect all 8 gym badges and become champion of a region felt like it would be so much more epic when not confined to a handheld. And finally, that day has come thanks to the Switch and the start of the 8th generation of Pokemon, Sword and Shield. But is it everything we dreamed it would be? Does it have that certain something that'll make it feel special? This time around, players take the role of a new trainer in the Galar region, where the Gym League and the Champion Cup are all anyone can talk about. It's emphasized so much more than any region before, and that could be due to its champion, Leon, who has never suffered a single defeat. With a new season of the Gym League beginning, you and the champion's younger brother, Hop, set out on a journey to compete in the league and maybe, just maybe, be the first one to defeat Leon. It's a Pokemon story that's both familiar yet different, as the league itself has never been highlighted quite this much. Rather than just something some trainers set out to do, the league is a highly publicized sport that the entire region tunes into as they see how far the new batch of gym challengers can make it. This created a different feeling for me as I played. The challenge seemed, well, like an actual challenge, something that was more difficult than the average person could expect to complete. And this was emphasized the further I progressed as I heard more about other challengers just not being able to cut it. This new take is something I really appreciate, as it made the things I did as a trainer feel all the more special. I wasn't just another challenger, I was the one who could potentially end the champion's winning streak. Unfortunately, this is also one of the most bare-bone Pokemon tales that I've ever encountered. There's almost nothing beyond the gym challenge. Hop and the other gym challengers, Bede and Marnie, have their own character arcs, but Hop's the only one with any real amount of time in the spotlight. It's great having a more jerkish rival in the form of Bede, but Marnie doesn't get to do much until late in the game. And that goes for Team Yell as well. They're just rowdy fans of Marnie who occasionally get in people's way, making them even less of a threat than Team Skull, with none of the understanding that made Sun and Moon's evil team so memorable. And by the time a plot does unfold that doesn't involve the Gym Challenge and Champion Cup, it's too little too late. It's a shame too, because the setting, along with the pomp and circumstance of the Gym Challenge, really sets it apart from past games. There's a sense of grandeur here that I really enjoyed. Even the lead up to the gym leaders was fun, as the idea of trials from Sun and Moon carried over. And then, of course, there's the new wild area, a large swath of land where dozens of different Pokemon roam, the weather changes often, and the camera can be freely controlled. It's the most open Pokemon has ever been, and while it's not huge, it'll still take at least a few minutes to walk from one end to the other when not on your bike. The wild area is also a bit dangerous early on though, as higher level Pokemon can be encountered. After all, within the first 2 hours of the game, it's possible to start exploring the entire thing. You will find Pokemon that provide a challenge. That said, the game goes out of its way to balance this element, as only Pokemon up to a certain level can actually be caught, with that cap expanding as you defeat each gym. The high-level Pokemon can be defeated, so it's a possible way of grinding up your team early. Story-wise, it's only necessary to travel through the wild area twice, but it can easily be returned to at any time to capture more powerful Pokemon, including some evolutions that require trades, like Steelix, with each new badge earned. Despite the freedom allowed in the wild area, it meshes well with the rest of the game. But for as cool as it is to see such a large area filled with Pokemon, it ultimately felt a bit empty, with little to see or do beyond catching Pokemon and going on max raid battles, which I'll detail soon. While the wild area could be used as a place to grind, I never found that necessary thanks to the newly required experience share. No longer is this an option, but something tied into the experience itself. At first I was unsure how to feel about this change, as previous experience shares seemed to keep me from using my entire team. And while there's still an element of that here, it's been rebalanced in such a way that it never felt as intrusive. Sword and Shield is completely built around this mechanic, and it's all the better for it. The wild area isn't just a place to battle and capture wild Pokemon though. There's also the max raid battles, which are accessed through nodes known as dens, spread all around. Raid battles feature you and 3 other trainers teaming up to take down a Dynamaxed Pokemon, which greatly increases its size and power. These raid Pokemon can also put up shields, dispel buffs, and act more than once per turn, making for a decent challenge. but defeating it will allow the players a chance to capture it themselves. The dens are a kind of focal point for the wild area, as merely inspecting one will earn players watts that can be spent with NPCs for special items or even upgrade your bike. There's a few other activities, but the biggest is absolutely the raid battles. They can be done either with AI allies or other players, but unfortunately that option wasn't available before release. The AI can get the job done, but most of the work relies on yourself. It's not a bad option, but for the more difficult raid Pokemon, I highly recommend doing this with other humans. Along with capturing Pokemon, winning a max raid battle earns players unique items as well, including berries, experience candies, and technical records, or TRs. These work like TMs, except they can only be used once, pretty much like the old versions of TMs, which means there are 200 different moves that can be taught through this method alone. It's a staggering amount that allows players to truly customize their team however they want, and that's just the start of it, as I'll detail soon. First and foremost, I think the new selection of Pokemon are fantastic. Every starter's final evolution is a favorite to the point that I'd be happy picking any of them. The new Galar forms are diverse and spread the love beyond Gen 1, and each new Pokemon I encountered felt like a treat. I love the new ideas on display, and some of the new type combinations are a lot of fun. There are a few duds, but on the whole, this is a great new lineup, and I was able to easily make a team of all newcomers. If you're able to stay spoiler-free when going into the game, I believe finding each new Pokemon will be a real thrill upon seeing their design. Seeing them all in battle is a joy as well, as the combat system is fast and full of new moves and abilities to take into account while still maintaining that classic appeal. There are no new battle types though beyond singles and doubles. The big new mechanic, literally, is the introduction of Dynamaxing, which allows Pokemon to become much larger versions of themselves that increases their stats and changes their moves to become more devastating. It's a mix of Mega Evolution from X and Y and Z moves from Sun and Moon. They're not as pervasive in the main game, however, as they're only available during gym battles or max raid battles. It helps make them not feel as overpowered, and the limit of only being active for 3 turns makes knowing when to activate them be more strategic. In most cases, I felt like Dynamaxing was a way to add some more challenge to the gym battles, as early on I would often have at least 1 or 2 Pokemon faint. While it's exciting to see, it feels more like Dynamax was designed with competitive players in mind, and that seems to be the case in a lot of instances. There are so many options in the game, specifically the post-game, that allow players to change their Pokemon's nature, ability, and so much more. It is shockingly easy to create your ideal team, and even before the post-game, every Pokemon Center has a kiosk where you can remember a Pokemon's forgotten moves, so if you caught one late, there's no fear of missing out on the ideal moveset. And it's here that I believe Pokemon Sword and Shield shine the most. There are so many systems in place to make competitive battling easier to get into, which is great considering that ranked online battles will be available at launch. I haven't been able to experience it, but everything surrounding this idea seems ready-made to create a fantastic competitive scene. Unfortunately, that's not why I play Pokemon. I play the series for the main story, to see what new Pokemon I can capture, what kind of new team will take me through the adventure, what crazy characters I might meet, visiting the new places I can explore, and discovering how the stakes are raised as I progress. Some might scoff at that, but I rarely bother with any Pokemon's postgame unless there's some kind of story tied to it. Even something as beloved as the Battle Frontier in past gens was just not my thing, and for players like me, there's not a lot to recommend about Sword and Shield. For one, while the story started off with lots of promise thanks to its grander gym challenge, and even the return of a jerk rival in the form of Bede, it never really did anything with this promise. By the story's midpoint, there were just no surprises to keep me invested, and unfortunately, this is endemic of the entire game. When I first began Sword and Shield, I was sucked into this new world. It was familiar, but it felt like it had a different story to tell, and I was so sure it was going to be something special for Pokemon fans. What I didn't realize was that as I went on, there wasn't much else to see. There are some really great ideas here, but the ones I cared about were rarely used. One of the best examples of this involves the escape rope. In every previous Pokemon game, these had to be bought in order to escape a dungeon or cave. They could be slogs to get through, and if you have the wrong encounter, that escape rope is necessary. In Sword and Shield, it no longer needs to be purchased. It's a key item that can be used at any time. That is a great quality of life improvement. The problem is, there's barely any dungeons, and the ones that are there are too short to really necessitate an escape rope. It's a good change that'd be more effective in past games. And this ties into exploration as well. It's not just the caves that are too short. Everything outside of the wild area feels small. The cities look impressive, but none have as much to see as Castelia City in Black and White or Lumio City in X and Y. It feels like a front with everything you can see and do easily fitting into a city like Saffron or Celadon from Gen 1. Heck, the town containing the 5th gem has as much to see as Pallet Town. It looks grand as I could see more buildings in the distance, but I couldn't reach them. The same goes for routes, with many of them only having short diversions and nothing else to really see. It all feels like a streamlined experience dictated by the complaints that there were too many cutscenes in Sun and Moon. But with so much of the game dedicated to the gym challenge, my early excitement eventually waned, and I felt like I had seen everything the game had to offer. There are less trainers to battle on each route, and the extra content really isn't all that interesting over the course of the main story. Pokejobs mainly serve as a way to send off your box Pokemon for a bit of experience, and the Pokemon Camp allows you to play with Pokemon using 2 different toys and by making curry. There's a ton of different curries to make in the game, to the point that there's an actual curry dex, though I couldn't exactly tell the difference between their effectiveness outside of how much extra experience my team earned. And these are incredibly potent, as the curry can fully heal your team, get rid of their side effects, and even revive them. I rarely bothered to use the camp or Pokejobs at all in my playthrough, as they often didn't feel necessary. That said, the game looks fantastic with some wonderfully imaginative locales and a great sense of scale when it comes to the gym battles. There's still some stiffness when it comes to the characters expressing themselves, but the faces actually react, especially those of the player character, and it's easily the best looking Pokemon game to date. The new moves are animated well, though some of the classic moves are starting to look a bit dated. There are occasional hints of slowdown when exploring the overworld, but it's rarely too distracting, and battles run smoothly. The soundtrack is solid, with plenty of new battle themes that incorporate the chants and cheers of a crowd into them. It helps simulate the grandeur of the gym battles, while the new character and town themes really popped at times as well. Sonia's theme in particular is a new favorite of mine. The sound effects are the same as they've ever been, but overall I'm happy with the game's sound design. I went into Pokemon Sword and Shield with a positive outlook. I could see tons of potential, and the new Pokemon and character designs really struck a chord with me. The idea to make gyms so much more grand was a good one, but it needed something more. Having such a big place to explore in the form of the wild area was a novel one, but the fact that there's so little to do there beyond raid battles makes the novelty wear off quick. Galar looks beautiful, but there's hardly ever a chance to explore beyond the wild area. There's a nominal effort here, but I ended up feeling like the game was too streamlined for its own good. The quality of life upgrades, some of which I haven't even mentioned, are fantastic across the board. This is one of the most competitive friendly games in the series, but the general adventure just felt lesser in the end. I like the game, and it's a good first step for Pokemon on consoles, but as a casual Pokemon player, there just wasn't enough for me to sink my teeth into. Hopefully, with this experience under their belts, Game Freak can make something even better next time.